If you thought that I read a lot of books and a lot of pages in February, well, March apparently had a lot more books and a lot more pages coming. So you're gonna need a coffee. Welcome to my March wrap up. Welcome back. If you are new here, my name is Katrina and I talk about books on the internet under the name Fabulous Book Fiend everywhere on the internet. All the links that you need to find me elsewhere aside from here are always in the description box below. My blog is also down there because I will be mentioning a few of these books that I have reviewed on my blog. I generally do my wrap-ups with by formats. So we have ebooks, physical books and audiobooks. Audiobooks is always my biggest category, but this month in particular struggled towards the second half of the month to read physical or ebooks, so I relied heavily on audiobooks. Normally there are more non-fiction books in my wrap-up, but apparently this month was very non-fiction light. I have one non-fiction book in here and that's it. So somebody asked me what my favourite non-fiction book I'd read recently was, and I was like, I've not read many recently, so we'll see if we can make a change in that for the month of April. But I mean, it could be something to do with a bit of mood reading. So I will tell you my official page count at the end of the video, and I do have a couple of these books that I'm planning on making whole videos for, so you're going to want to subscribe so that you don't miss my whole video review of those. Let's jump right in with the ebooks that I read this month. I first of all read Out of the Blue, Meet Me at Pebble Beach Part 1 by Bella Osborne, which I do have a review of on my blog, and this is going to be a 4-part series released on the 2nd, 16th, 30th of April, then one in the, I think, second week of May, and then the bind up of all 4 parts of these is out on the 23rd of May, I believe. And I have read part 1 and I have part 2 ready to go on my Kindle that I got from NetGalley. This is a banging start to a new series. This is all set in and around Brighton, following an entirely flawed main character. She is hilariously flawed, but we love her already. Highly recommend this series. Like I say, part 1 is out now, and part 2 is coming out on the 16th of April, ready to hit your Kindle. And because these are serialized novels, they are quick reads, which I think we all need a little bit of right now. Then another ebook that I have to talk about is Strangers by C.L. Taylor, only I am not going to talk about it an awful lot here. I have a review of this one on my blog and also on my Instagram, but I am about to, once I'm finished filming this video, film you a whole review of this one. So again, make sure you subscribe so that lands in your subscription feed. And if you're watching this after the fact, I will leave the video linked up here in case you're coming to this a few days or a few weeks later. I will leave my video of Strangers, C.L. Taylor, and also C.L. Taylor is going to be on a panel at the Social Distance Book Fest happening on the 25th of April. So you're going to want to read your copy of Strangers before then so you can hear her talk about it on the panel. Very exciting. Then a book that just absolutely blew me away. This is Pretending by Holly Bourne. This one is kind of being marketed as a rom-com, and there is definitely romance and comedy in this book. This book did make me laugh. This is adult fiction, rom-com, because Holly Bourne is known for her YA fiction, which I have but have never read. However, this book deals insanely well with rape culture, with the issue of what it means to be a woman in the here and now, what it means to be a woman trying to date in the here and now, just trying to be a part of society right now, and basically takes everything that it could be inside your head and Holly Bourne puts it on the paper, and I feel seen and I feel heard, and I was made sad by this book, but then, you know, 2 seconds later it made me laugh at the same time, and I just don't know how she's managed to do it all in the space of like a fictional story of like 400 pages. Like, how has she accomplished this? I am just in awe. This is one of those books where you're like, damn, I wish I'd written that book, because all these thoughts are in my head, and Holly Bourne's put them down on paper and told this amazing story through April, our main character. Just, obviously there are care warnings in here for rape and sexual violence and PTSD, but if you are good to go, highly recommend this one. I just was blown away by it. I'm still kind of digesting and thinking about it now. It was a stunning read, and it came out on the 2nd of April, so you can get it now. And then that is it for my ebooks. It's generally always my smallest category, but yeah, I think I planned on reading a couple more ebooks this month, but in general, in terms of my March TBR, I did read everything except one book that was on my March TBR, so I'm fine with that. Let's move on to physical books. I read 2 of the novellas that tag on to some of the page turn books that I read that are inside of One Perfect Christmas. One of these was One Perfect Christmas, which follows on from One Perfect Summer. One Perfect Summer just blew me away. I don't know why it sat on my shelf for so long. It's been sat on my shelf for literally years. I think it's been in 3 different places that I've lived with me. I don't know why I didn't read it when it came out and just dive right in, because it's so cute, it's so lovely. It's set in and around Cambridge. We've got Alice and Joe who meet on a like summer romance down in Dorset, and then things rip them apart, and then we follow Alice, who's a bit broken and a bit raw, and it's a bit like One Day, where we kind of catch up with Alice at various intervals, and you know, we want things to go right for her, and we want them to get together, and you know, there's German people and punters and all sorts getting in the way, and I just absolutely loved it. I'm still thinking about it now, and I don't know why it took me so long to read it. You out there who like page 2, why did you not say, Katrina, why have you not read this yet? How have you not read this yet? So if you're looking for something to escape, highly recommend page 2. This one is one of the only books where we don't kind of travel to a different country. We go to Germany very briefly, but aside from that, we stay in and around England. However, another page turn novel that I did was The Longest Holiday by Page Toon, where we traveled to the Florida Keys, and I just love this as a setting. A lot of Page Toon's kind of beachy reads are set in and around Australia. The one that I'm reading at the moment, which is on my April TBR, if you haven't already seen it, it will have been linked up above for you. But this one, yeah, a lot of her beachy ones are set around Australia, but this one's in the Florida Keys, and I just loved that as a setting. It seemed to be a bit of a kind of like it setting at the time. It was a bit of a trendy setting when this one came out, and so I was enjoying kind of being in a familiar far off location, because I read these when I was in the UK. And then there's a Laura extra chapter in One Perfect Christmas, and then also inside of One Perfect Christmas there is a Christmas Wedding, which is the kind of extra chapter sequel to 13 Weddings, which I have jumped around slightly because I did do this on audiobook. This one was a reread for me, and it is what it says on the tin. It's about a wedding photographer called Bronte. Wedding photography isn't her main job, but she does it at the weekend, and we follow her over the course of 13 different weddings, and then her extra chapter is inside of One Perfect Christmas. And having read all Page Toon's novels up to 13 Weddings, it was extra special because lots of the characters made cameos. There was reference to other characters. One of the characters from The Longest Holiday pops up in 13 Weddings, and I know that she's coming in another one that I'm reading in April as well. So it was just a joy to be with, and then reading A Christmas Holiday straight after was just so perfect. Just like reading One Perfect Christmas straight after reading One Perfect Summer was just delightful. There's nothing more to say other than the fact that it was delightful. So whilst we're on the subject of Page Toon, since I've jumped into an audiobook here, I also reread Pictures of Lily, which is very, very bright here. This one is set in and around Australia, flitting back between Australia and the UK, and this one features baby koalas and photography. So I mean, I think that's really all I need to say to sell Pictures of Lily to you. The audiobook is very good, and Lily might pop up in future page turn novels if you are thinking of going back and reading hers just like we are. In case you don't know about my page tune read along, I will link the video up here. We are rereading all the Pages back catalogue, ready for her new book, which comes out in May. It's not very far away now. I'm very excited to read her new one. I haven't decided whether I want to pre-order on audio or Kindle. It's probably going to be audio, but I'm yet to make my pre-order choice on that one. Anyway, I digress. Whilst February had a lot of long books for me, March had some long books but also some short books. So I did read some shorter physical books as well this month. I read a few poetry books, and this is the first of them. This is Break Your Glass Slippers, which is the new book by Amanda Lovelace. Let's just delight in the beauty of this cover here, and the hammer on the spine. She said she did an Instagram live and said that initially the hammer was on the cover somewhere, but it looked a bit busy. She just wanted the glass slippers on the cover, so they moved the hammer to be on the spine, which I think was a genius choice. And there are some amazing pictures and illustrations in this one too. I have, as you can see, flagged several of my favourite pictures and poems, but I absolutely love this illustration here. And then I think my next one was also an illustration. I'll just show you a couple. I have a whole video talking about Amanda's previous series, which includes The Princess Saves Herself in this one, The Mermaid's Voice returns in this one, and why can I not remember that one off by heart? It's here. So it's The Witch Doesn't Burn in this one, which is the Women Are Some Kind of Magic series, and this is the start of a new series, and there are going to be more books in this series. But I like this checklist illustration as well, so it's a poem within an illustration, which I just think is really cool. I absolutely love this one. I knew I was going to love it, and this was kind of my final book that I bought before everything went shut down. We were told to stay home from 5 p.m. on the Tuesday, and I bought this on the Tuesday morning, so it was my last hurrah book. And then some other shorter physical books I've read. Aside from Mooncakes, I also read Paper Girls Volume 6, which is the last in the series. I didn't realise that this was the last in the series, otherwise I think I probably would have picked this up sooner. It was a great ending to the series, and they did a double edition with a double wrap around cover, and some of the pictures in this one are just fabulous. I love some of the kind of big pages and the way they've laid things out, and it harks back to Paper Girls Volume 1, which I absolutely love. But yeah, this one was a bit longer than I was expecting it to be because it's a double length, but I'm pleased I read this series. It's been a really good series to have read. I love the fact that it's very girl power. The time travel is very believable and very light, and I love their reactions to various things when they time travel. So the way 12-year-olds might kind of react to things when they time travel differently, how we as adults would react to things when we time travel. That's the kind of aspect I really like about it, aside from the fact that we have some strong girls who are saving the world. I love that. And then I read 3 more of this year's Quick Reads books, and I do have a video, a reading vlog on these books coming up, so again, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss that one. I read The Little Dreams of Lara Cliff by Millie Johnson. I have a review of this one up already on my vlog, and you will get to see more thoughts on it in that video. That one is a rom-com, an adult rom-com. Then we have The Donor by Claire McIntosh, which was my first Claire McIntosh, but I've discussed with people extensively since loving this one what Claire McIntosh I should read next, and this is an adult thriller. And then we have Notting Hill Carnival, A West Side Story by Candice Carty-Williams. Candice Carty-Williams wrote Queenie, which was absolutely massive last year, and I have a whole video talking about that one, and then you'll be able to see my thoughts on this one in my quick reads reading vlog. That is quite hard to say. Try saying that quickly 3 times. But yeah, so those are kind of the shorter books that I have, and I did read quite a lot of shorter books this month, but then apparently I also read some longer books as well. So my novellas inside of the page tune bind up, my poetry books and my graphic novels all kind of counted towards my books and my page total. But then of course we have, as always, the biggest category of all, my audiobooks. I think we need a little bit more fortifying coffee before moving on to audiobooks. I do of course have my coffee in my Enchanted Fandom's Lord of the Rings cup. I felt like I needed a really like chunky big cup because it kind of goes with the flannel here, but I always have a discount code for Enchanted Fandoms in the description box below if you want to save yourself some money on their shop. They do have other drinking vessels in their shop, or you sometimes get a drinking vessel in their monthly subscription boxes as well. There's been a few amazing cups that I've had from there. But yes, have another sip of coffee and move on to audiobooks. Okay, so we have Again But Better by Christine Riccio. I have a whole video talking about this young adult travel across the pond book, so I will leave that linked up above and say no more about this one. Then we have 19 Love Songs by David Levithan. This is a young adult romance, contemporary romance, which is comprised of 19 basically short stories which have the title of love songs to them. So they have track numbers and track titles, so like Your Temporary Santa, A Better Writer, 8-Song Memoir, 12 Months, The Whole, How My Parents Met, and I loved all of them. Like normally there's some that you kind of, you're not so keen on in this one, but I just really loved all of them. So many of them have diverse representation and queer representation, as you would expect from David Levithan. That his books always have amazing representation in them, and I just really liked it. And I much prefer the US cover to the UK cover. The UK cover fits with his other books, I agree, and so would fit with some of the ones that I've got on my shelf there, but the US cover is just so pretty. This is obviously the library book. I did it on audio, but I just think the US cover is lovely, and I highly recommend that one because again, it's got shorter things that you can dip in and out of. So if your attention span's not quite where it normally is right now, some short stories are, I find, a good antidote to that. Then we have The Sundown Motel by Simone St. James, which everybody and their mate were talking about over on Bookstagram, book bloggers, booktubers. Everybody was talking about this one. This was a book of the month choice, and I got it early and didn't read it early, and then ended up getting the audiobook from my library. So I finally listened to this one, and it was definitely creepy. I think people have been saying that it was more of a thriller with a bit of horror-esque to it. I would say it's horror/mystery, because it was definitely creepy. Some parts of it gave me goosebumps, but in terms of a thriller, I don't think it was quite there, but there was a lot of mystery aspects to it. You had to kind of remember who was who, which isn't so good when you're doing an audiobook. I would maybe recommend doing the physical book of this one, but once you got track of who was who and what was going on, it was like, oh, exciting. What's going to happen next? Who's this going to turn out to be? Who's this letter going to be from? What's that sound that we're hearing? Oh, it's a ghost. Okay then. So yeah, so it was something very different for me to read, and this was one I read early on in the month. Has the memory of it stuck with me the whole month? I wouldn't say so. I do have a review of this one on my blog if you want to read my full thoughts, but I wouldn't say that the hype was worth it on this one. It was alright, it was creepy, it was fun, but I don't think it was worth the hype that everyone was throwing at it and putting it all over the internet for. And kind of another one which kind of didn't live up to my expectations. This one is The Remarkable Journey of Coyote Sunrise, which my lovely friend Crystal got signed for me for my birthday. So this is a signed, personalised copy. However, I had a hold on the audiobook from the library for a little while. This one is a middle grade novel, and it features a kind of road trip and a group of unlikely characters. A girl is traveling with her father, but you know, we're not sure why they're not both at home. And I think, unfortunately for me, the kind of protective teacher came out a bit, and I wanted them not to be on this adventure, which isn't the point of the book. But I think just because of my background, because of all my like child protection training, I think that's probably what stopped me from enjoying this book as much as I thought I was going to. So, you know, if you haven't got the same background as me, you'll probably enjoy this one because it's quite a little adventure and we meet some kooky characters along the way. But I just spent most of the time being a little bit worried, and that's not how you want to feel when you're reading a book. And this was before all of this happened anyway. So, yeah. Then we have one that I was on a blog tour for. So I have a physical copy that they sent me for review, but then I decided to buy the audiobook because I listened to some of this on my flight back from New York, and this is The Neighbours by Nicola. To get up from rock bottom, you've got to take the stairs. This is an adult rom-com, and it was just really nice. It was really sweet, and it follows Cassie and Ginny and their unlikely friendship. Ginny's in a bit of a situation, so's Cassie, but in a very different way, and they come together, and you know, when we come together, everything works out a little bit better, and we can all help each other and all pull together, and that's a nice kind of message for this. But this also has really good messages about mental health and about self-care as well. So recommend this one, and I have a review of it on my blog if you want to go and read my full thoughts. Then another one that didn't quite live up to my expectations, and I don't know, did I have high expectations going into this one? It was another one that everybody was talking about, and they were kind of really selling it to me, and so I got it as a Book of the Month Club pick again. And this one is Anna K by Jenny Lee, and this, you know, it's a love story. It's a young adult retelling of Anna Karenina that's set in New York, and a lot of people have compared this to Gossip Girl. I have not seen Gossip Girl, but the entitlement of the people and the characters in this book really annoyed me and really grated on me. I think I would have enjoyed the story better had these been not like normal teenagers, but I think if there hadn't been so much if you've seen that episode of Sex and the City where Samantha arranges a bar mitzvah, and you've got these, I think she was called Jenny as well, actually. You've got these 4 teenage girls who are obviously 13, and they're all talking about like who they've slept with and what they've done, and it was that kind of almost like slightly ick factor of these teenagers, these young people. I don't know, there was a disconnect there for me, and it really kind of rubbed me up the wrong way and put me off a little bit. So I did listen to all of it. I could have DNF'd it, to be honest, but I did listen to the end, and it was quite a long audiobook as well, and I just wanted to like it. I love the cover, I love the like pink and blue combo, and loads of people had said that they loved it and it was a really good book, and it just wasn't for me for those various reasons. And then we have another middle grade book which I did. This was my first read of March, and again it's a road trip book with somebody who maybe should be at home, and I think this fell into the same fate as Coyote Sunrise. My like child protection training hackles came up, and I was like, what's going on? Why is this happening? This shouldn't be happening. I was worried for our main character. It's quite a short book, but the only kind of lasting memory that sticks with me for it is the whole like, these people shouldn't be doing this, take the children home. But yeah, how to go on an unplanned road trip with your grandma. Grab a suitcase pre-packed from the big spring break trip that got cancelled. Leave a note for dad. Who's going to worry and be mad because you're grounded? Fasten your seatbelt. GMA's anything but conventional, so this trip won't be either. And I was just really worried from the whole time, and you can see why from that synopsis there. And again, it's a middle grade novel. If you're a middle grader reading this novel, you're not going to come to it from the same position as me. And so I'm sure it'll be a really fun adventure with some, you know, decent representation for some diverse groups and marginalized groups. But this one just wasn't for me. And like I say, the only thing that stuck with me from when I read it on my plane back from New York was the worry. I had to kind of switch off and come back to it later, which is why I ended up reading The Neighbours by Nicola. And then we have This Train is Being Held by Ismay Williams, and Ismay Williams is another author who is going to be part of the Social Distance Book Festival, and this one is set in New York and is a bit of a kind of West Side Story young adult modern day retelling. I've read 2 West Side Story retellings this month, and like, I'm not a massive fan of the film, but the retellings in the books have both been really good. They've both been really different. Obviously this one is set in New York like the original film is. The other one is set in London and the west of London, and that's why it's called that. But this one is urban romance, but this also tackles mental health, racism, its own voices. It's just, and I love the cover, I have to say. This one was definitely a cover pick. I'd heard people talk about it, but even the fact that we've got like pink end papers, I just like that. So I did it on audio from my library as well, but I like the fact that I've got this physical copy here, and I'm excited that I've got a physical copy so I can kind of revisit parts of it before we come to the 25th of April and Social Distance Book Fest. So let's go on to audiobooks that I do not have a physical copy of. Yes, there are more. There are more books, which is crazy, but we're gonna get there. So we have When Life Gives You Lemons by Fiona Gibson. This one is adult rom-com and tells the story of menopausal Viv, whose life is not turning out the way she'd planned. Everything's going a little bit wrong for Viv's marriage, and Viv's husband is just a bit of a dick, and yeah, turns out there's lots of things that he hasn't been telling her, and we see Viv step up to the plate and deal with that in, you know, the way only a menopausal woman can. And there was some really funny moments and some really heartfelt moments, and I have a full review of this one on my blog because I was part of the blog tour for it, so it's very exciting. Then we have another one that I was also part of the blog tour for, an audiobook called Back to Reality by Mark Stay and Mark Oliver, and this one is a bit of a time travel, 2 alternate timelines, parallel universe type of thing, but being based around an adult rom-com. So it was just real enough to keep me interested, because you know I can't venture off into fantasy worlds the way some other people can, and I really enjoyed this kind of like, what if this had happened? Well, where would my life be then? And what if this had happened? And you've got the same character, but she's got these 2 different lives, well, kind of 3 different lives, without giving anything away, and she's so different in each of these different lives. It was just really interesting to read, and a really fun read. Quite a quick read. The audio was narrated well, apart from one Scottish character. Yeah, I'm like, maybe authors just don't write Scottish characters in your books unless your narrator is actually Scottish, because nobody else seems to be able to do a Scottish accent, and these people are being paid to do these accents, so just maybe don't write Scottish characters in your books unless you're going to get a Scottish narrator for your audiobook. But speaking of fantasy and different worlds, I did actually read a young adult fantasy novel this month, and this one is Havenfall by Sarah Holland, and I'll just let you take a moment to look upon this beautiful cover and see all the different layers and different aspects of it, because every time I look at it I see something new and something different, and it's just, The writing is just as beautiful as the cover. This is why I still pick up Sarah Holland books, because I am not a fantasy reader. I am not her target audience. However, she just writes so beautifully and creates these really interesting worlds with these strong female leads that I just am like here for. This one is definitely all about the description of Havenfall and the world, and the beautiful descriptions that she uses. I know I've said the word description an awful lot there, but that's what I really took away from this book. Maddie is our main character. Maddie is never officially said, but Maddie seems to have a crush on a boy, but also a bit of a relationship with a girl. So we think that Maddie is bi, and so that's interesting. I want to see more of that explored a bit further in book 2, but I like the fact that it's kind of brought up in book 1. Maddie also has basically everything go wrong for her, but she does her best to kind of like try and save the world and try and get herself out of these situations, and I'm sure that we're going to see her kind of really come into her own a little more in book 2. So it was, I know I'm not the target audience, so it's hard for me to kind of fully critique, but I enjoyed the world building and I enjoyed Maddie as a main character, so that was good. Then we have one which I am going to have a book versus movie coming up soon on this channel, so stay tuned for that. I read Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng, and this one is of course a TV show on Hulu starring Reese Witherspoon and Kerry Washington, and so I'm going to wait till the episodes are all up so I can watch them and bring you a book versus TV show here, and I'll share my thoughts on the book and the TV show in that video, so gonna have to wait for that one. And another one with an upcoming book versus movie is All the Bright Places by Jennifer Niven. I'm literally about to sit down and film my book versus movie for this one. I have to preface this by saying that this was a reread for me from a previous DNF. I did put this book down previously. Again, I tried to do the audiobook and I just couldn't. I think I had a physical copy at one point too, but I feel like I'm the only person that kind of doesn't rave about this book. I think it's just a very, very triggering book and really dark and depressing. I did read the whole thing. I wasn't, I managed to get through the whole thing this time. I still thought it was really dark and depressing and really quite triggering, but I have some thoughts on the movie, so I will share those with you in that video, which is literally coming like next week, like super soon, like probably in the next video you're going to see. So it's coming, the thoughts are coming. Then we have a couple of books that were recommended to me and seemed right up my street but haven't kind of stuck with me. We have How We Fight for Our Lives by Saeed Jones, which is a memoir of growing up gay in, I think it's Texas, and again, all of those things. So I did read another non-fiction, there we go. All of those things sound really up my street, but it just wasn't all that memorable to me, and it was quite short but dragged a little bit. I don't know if the pacing was just off. It's quite sort of poetic in style, and again I thought I would really, really like that, but it just was a bit of a like, oh, I thought this book was going to be better than it was. And I don't really have an awful lot more to say about it because it's a memoir, so it's not like I can be like, oh, the storyline or oh, the characters. Yeah, it was just a little bit of a letdown. And then this one is one that's, it's literary fiction, which isn't something I normally read, but there'll be the occasional piece of literary fiction that I enjoy. And this one has been kind of making it onto all of those lists. And again, books that make it onto lists generally aren't my thing, but this is Nothing to See Here by Kevin Wilson, which I listened to in one sitting, and I was like, I still quite kind of don't know what to make of it. It's very different from what you're expecting, and I kind of didn't pay attention to the fact that the cover has a picture of a child on fire on it. And yeah, the cover has a picture of a child on fire on it, and I didn't look at that before picking up the book. So that gives you a big hint as to what's going to be in the book. And there's a nanny in the book and children in the book. It's very interesting. It's very short, and it is very different from anything I've ever read. So it kind of wins that award. But yeah, I haven't written a review of it because I still don't quite know what to make of it. Does that ever happen to you? Like, oh, it's just, there's a picture of a child on fire on the cover and I didn't notice that. And then, you know, the book shocked me a little bit. Should have looked at the cover. Then kind of back to poetry. I did do some poetry on audio this month. Again, was struggling to read physical, so it's good that I managed to find some audiobooks to borrow from my library. I read Pillow Thoughts by Courtney Pepernell, and I read Pillow Thoughts 1, and I read Pillow Thoughts 2, and I read Pillow Thoughts 3, and the jellyfish are referenced in her poetry books. She reads her own poetry books, and they have been absolutely amazing to listen to right now. And I have listened to them before bed. So I listened to one before bed one night, one before bed the next night, and one before bed the next night. And they were very, very soothingly read, even though, you know, I listen at double speed. But I have ordered the paperback copies of these, and once I have them, I'm going to make a whole video talking about them because I want to reread them and I want to shout about them, and I think they're amazing reading for the time that we find ourselves in, and helped to read them, you know, with a pillow. And yeah, I just really enjoyed them, and I don't know why it took me quite so long to read them, but I did. And then another poetry book that I enjoyed is Adulterer Lessons by Gabby Hanna, and it does say it's illustrated by her. So again, I'm like, I kind of need a physical copy of this one to see the illustrations, because I enjoyed listening to the poetry, which again is read by her. But it would be interesting to see the illustrations. I have seen a physical copy of this book in Target, I think, but it was really good and funny. It was interesting because a lot of the poems rhymed, and I haven't listened or read a lot of poetry, adult poetry, where the poems rhyme. I read a lot of picture books that rhyme, but I haven't read a lot of adult poetry that has rhyming, so that was different. I recommend. It's definitely on a very different track than Break Your Glass Slippers or Pillow Thoughts or the Nikita Gill stuff that I've read. It was definitely more like a light-hearted and had a bit of humour in there, but still just as good. And then one that I've been meaning to read since I heard this author talk at Book Expo last year. It's The Friend Zone by Abby Jimenez. This one's been kind of on and off my TBR. I've got it from the library. I haven't read it. It's had to go back again because it's had a hold on it. It's come off the TBR again. And I really enjoyed it. I thought it was so good. Again, very much what it's like to be a woman living today. And it really shines a light on how, you know, being a woman and having a uterus that isn't the healthiest place, how that can just completely destroy your life. But also some really cool romance and some nice sex scenes in here, sex scenes with safe sex and sex scenes with consent. And I love that about it. So yeah, really recommend that one. I, again, listened to it in one big gulp. I really enjoyed it, and it was exactly what I needed to hear. And I'm so pleased I finally read it. It took me long enough, but I'm so pleased I finally read it. And then we have another audiobook that was given to me for review by Penguin Random House Audio. This is The Office by Andy Green, the untold story of the greatest sitcom of the 2000s, which I have a whole review of on my blog. But this was basically a kind of book of two halves for me, not the first half and the second half, but the content versus the audio, because the content of this one is very interesting. I do enjoy The Office, both the UK and the US version. Currently have some Office bedding on the bed right now, some Office stickers on my laptop, and we are listening to the Office Ladies podcast every week and then watching the accompanying episode. So I am an Office fan. And so the content of this one was really interesting. It goes chronologically right from when it was first conceived, with some comparisons to the UK office, and right through to where we are now. However, the narration of this one was awful. It was terrible. So this is based around lots of different interviews with different people connected to both the UK and the US office. And that might be somebody that starred on it, somebody that's written something, somebody that's based around the production. It could be anything. And the accents that the actors who portray these people use are just verging on racist and verging on being like discriminatory against disabled people, and that really kind of rubbed us up the wrong way when we were listening to it, which is a shame because the content itself is really interesting and you want to hear it, and it's been compiled really well. So yeah, I would recommend either doing this not in audio form or just getting your Office information from the Office Ladies podcast, because I do love a bit of the Office Ladies podcast, and then we watch the episode and go, oh yeah, Angela was talking about that. Oh yeah, Jenna said this happened here. So that's always interesting. Then another one that was sent to me for review, but on NetGalley, and I ended up finding the audiobook and listened to the audiobook. This is Jet Setters by Amanda Eyre Ward, and this is contemporary fiction, adult contemporary fiction, and this surrounds a family where the kind of mum grandma wins a cruise or wins a trip, and so they all go off on this cruise together. And it's a bit of a hodgepodge, and you know you wouldn't put these people together on a boat for that length of time in confined spaces, and you know things are going to kick off, and people are withholding things, and people are saying that they're doing things that they're not doing, and you've got that dilemma. But for me, this writer didn't kind of push it far enough. I felt that there was a lot more exciting things that these characters could have done, a lot more ways they could have clashed, a lot more issues they could have faced, a lot more explosive reactions to things that could have happened. And so I think I just wanted a bit more drama in this book. It was a bit blah, it was a bit boring, it struggled to keep my attention. I listened to the whole thing again. I probably could have DNF'd it, but because somebody had been like, oh, why don't you review this, Katrina? I did, and unfortunately it came off as like a bit of a book, so not a recommend from me, and unless it was rewritten with more drama. And it's not like, you know, it's not like I'm like, oh yes, I have to have all the drama, I have to have all the drama. I mean, you know, drama's good and it makes things compelling to read, but generally I'm okay with just a touch of romance or a touch of humour or a touch of consensual, safe sex. I've come to the end. Can you believe it? If you've made it this far, oh my goodness, well done. Let's cheers to you. Here's your coffee to my coffee. So, final page counts. February, I ended up reading loads of long books. If you remember that video, I will have linked it up here at some point. And I read over 7,000 pages. February, I read 8 books that were 400 pages plus. 2 of those were over 5. 1 of those was over 6. But this month, I still read 7 books that were over 400 pages. However, I also read 6 books that were 100 to 200 pages and another 8 books that were 200 to 300 pages. You know, you've seen my shorter books, my novellas, my poetry books. Those all fall into that either 100 to 200 or 200 to 300 pages. Whereas, you know, in a normal month, I might read a lot of paperbacks that are like this length here. So it's interesting that I went from reading lots of long books and being very conscious of it to still reading almost as many long books this month, but also reading a ton of short books too. So I did read more things if we're counting novellas and graphic novels, which why wouldn't we? You know, I'm in favour of anything you want to read, that's you. Audiobooks are books, graphic novels are books. So I read more things than there were in days of the month, which is not entirely unsurprising given the fact that, you know, places I normally go to during the day are closed. But given the fact that my mind has not been entirely on reading, and you know how many audiobooks I fitted in this month, yeah. But my page count this month was, again, accounting for errors in like different formats and things like that, 10,535 pages. So I thought I read a lot in February and I wasn't going to read as much this month. Well, I was wrong, very wrong. 10,535 pages. I think that's incredible. And you can tell that I've read a bit more because there have been a few books that I've been a bit like, I didn't like this one. This one was a letdown. I also had one DNF this month, which was Topics of Conversation, which I nearly picked as my book of the month club pick one month, and I'm really glad I didn't because I've got it from audiobook from my library and just couldn't get on with it. I tried an hour. It wasn't engaging me at all, not in the slightest, so I just returned it. It's like, somebody else can have this one. There's a wait list. On you go. Not for me. So yeah, one DNF and then 36 other things, 10,000 pages. Yeah, it was a good reading month. Let me know in the comments below what your favourite book of March was. Make sure you are subscribed so that my next video lands in your subscription feed. You know there's a few book versus movie coming. Then you know there's a few standalone reviews coming. So you've got those to look forward to, as well as a petty book haul. Exciting. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and I will see you in the comments to chat about March books. Yay!